Welcome back to the Social Seller Podcast with Conor Paulsen, where we interview the world's highest quality communicators, professionals, business owners, creatives, and everything in between. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you're a high quality communicator, there's a good chance you're living a lot happier life, but you're also bringing those opportunities into your life almost like a magnet. My guarantee is that on this show, we only interview people that I, one, look up to, and two, that I know are going to continue to kill the game for years to come, and I want to make sure they're on your radar. But what I've learned is by asking the best questions, we get the best responses, and that's what the highest quality communicators, our social sellers, are all about. Let's hop inside to the Social Seller Podcast.
Mr. Brad A. Milford. Hey, happy Monday. Thank you for joining on the social.
It's been a while.
Absolutely.
I'm glad to connect.
Right? It's been 6 to 12 months in the making, and I loved our little pre-conversation. This is going to be some fun. Now, for anyone that doesn't know Brad Milford yet, he's a business strategist, a sales wizard. He builds A-list teams for companies all around the world. He's a former U.S. Navy cryptologist, a world traveler, and currently based in Gainesville, Florida. Looking in and doing some research, I did not know about the Navy cryptology. Very cool. And it makes sense. I know you have a fascination for assessments, a curiosity for building teams and helping people achieve a higher level, right? And that taps into happiness. So thank you again for being here, Brad. And what are you looking forward to today?
I'm just looking to hang out with, the tribe and with you, of course, and just discuss some social selling. That's the point of this. That's the intention. I always love having an intention, right? And so let's dive into some stories. How do people create influence? Let's chat. I'm excited to chat with you, my man.
I love it. And I think any of our previous conversations could have been recorded, and I'm sure there would have been some value, because I know you and me always leave our conversations taking notes about the off-topic things that we say, right? And I want to hop right in, because when you really stood out to me, it was close to a year ago. And I mentioned this when we were chatting last week briefly, but it was helping understand one of the biggest things you had to work on, being a competitive individual, growing up, an athlete. And I relate, and I know a lot of others relate, but then bringing that to business and always wanting more. And it feels good to accomplish, but it's really this need for significance and being known. And when you stated that, not only did it resonate, I had never heard anyone speak on that. So Brad, could you kind of dive into how did that come up into your life as a child and how you view it today?
I love it, Conor. You're going to just dive right into the crux of things. I dig it. So we did have an interesting conversation about significance. So significance has a really positive aspect, and a lot of people talk about it in a positive light, as a positive connotation, but there's a dark side to significance. Are you ready? Do you want to hear it? Everybody listening and watching? There's a spectrum, right? Just about anything in the world today. And so there's a positive side and a negative side, if you will, polarity to that. So most of my life, so when I was young, 7 years old, I'm going to start out with a really short story, right? 7 years old, my mom and my stepdad, they split up, okay? They had an argument, but that's not important at the time. It was at the time for me, because what happened through that event is then I didn't have a stepfather, and now I didn't have a father and I didn't have a stepfather, right? So I had no male influence in my life. And I remember that moment. We have these glimmers of things throughout our life, these memories, right? And I remember thinking, all I really wanted to do at that time, at 7 years old, right? You want to be loved, you want to belong, you want to become, like, you have these things that are, you want to believe in things, right? And have hope. And in that moment, I realized that all I really wanted to do was belong. I wanted to be more and be able to grow. From that moment, for many years after that, until I figured all this out, many, many years later, it's been a journey, right? Of becoming, and I just wanted to be loved. I wanted to belong, right? So we could talk business, but a lot of business really comes down to communication and how we get along with one another, and the infrastructure and substructure of who we are as people and how we show up authentically. I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff out there, just like in the middle, but this ties into significance. So the conversation we had when I shared with you, most of my life, I was chasing significance. So I was chasing it through my childhood by shocking people and creating like these weird events. I was a class clown. So, I was getting attention, right? I was chasing significance. I just wanted to feel significant and be a part of something, right? In the time of the military, there were many things, and I have all kinds of military stories, right? Of things I may have done that probably could have been done better. Now, I did some things right, but some things maybe not so effectively, right? And then even as an entrepreneur, up through my 20s and 30s, I was very successful, highly successful. I built stadiums all over the country, even outside the country. Design, build, recreation items, and tennis courts and basketball courts, and anything you ever seen in a park. I was very successful, but I was chasing significance in a way that kept people at arm's length from me. I was chasing the glitz and the glamour and the parties and the best looking people and like all that stuff that really ultimately doesn't matter. And it wasn't until, it wasn't until my early 40s that it dawned on me, and that's a story in and of itself. Maybe we'll dive into that. But in my early 40s, when I realized that my need for chasing significance was not a positive thing, it was actually causing me problems. And that was the catalyst to major change, not only in my business, but my personal life. So significance definitely has, if it's not framed right, it's where we lean the ladder on the wall. Like if it's on the wrong wall, we're chasing it for the wrong reasons instead of love and contribution, then that can be problematic for people. And it's not a common subject. It's not one you hear about in social media today a lot.
Amen, Brad. I resonate with so many points there, and I want to unpack it to make it more real. In growing up without the male roles and a lot of your upbringing, right? And that masculine energy, which we know as we get older, it starts to have more and more of an effect. And our personal life absolutely shows up in how we show up as professionals too, and how we're going to conduct business too, right? Are we going to cut corners, or are we going to ensure that anyone that joins our team is only playing by the rules? And it sounds almost silly to bring up, but there's a lot of companies out there that don't, and that's completely fine. With significance, what was it at a young age and not having those male role models or that masculine energy in your life? What aspect did you want the world to see about you? Was it that you wanted to be a legacy setter in your family, or was it you wanted to be able to give back to your mother, or was it to earn money to give back to someone, or where was that why? And then how did you see what were those first couple nice things that you really wanted in it? And to you at the time, it only made sense. That's absolutely going to probably make me happier.
Those are a lot of great questions, Conor. For me, I'm going to be candid and honest. You know me to be that way. So
please do.
I could jump into some positive, but I'm going to start with some negative first because, frankly, I had a lot of pain in my life. So because I started off on the wrong trajectory with the wrong role models, I had a lot of street time and not so much family time in my younger life. And that's not to complain, not in any way. It's actually, I'm grateful for it today, all of those things that I've walked through. But I had a lot of pain, not only through my childhood, but through my younger 20s as well, throughout the military, that caused PTSD. And then even into my entrepreneurial upcoming in my early 20s up through my 30s, I had to find a way to work that out. So I think one of the biggest things, I'll move from the pain to what you can do about that, but I think one of the biggest things is a lot of us have dealt with, I'm no different than many of the people out there, anybody listening or watching, like we've all experienced pain in different degrees, right? And it's all the same intensity to us, no matter the situation. The stories you hear, you might think, oh, they have a lot worse than me. That might not be the case. We all feel a certain intensity, right? And so regardless of your upbringing, how you walked through those tribulations or trials, we carry these things with us, right? So for many years, I carried a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, a lot of pain with me, and I wasn't equipped. Going back to the mentorship or lack of mentorship, I wasn't equipped to deal with it. Was never taught like, hey, this is what you do with that. Here's how you de-escalate that. This is how you move through it. This is how you not how you don't create resentment and anger in your life. So I walked around pretty freaking angry for a long time, both with my family. Unfortunately, I've worked through all that, but in business as well. And so from town to town to town, as I was traveling and around the world, I was kind of an angry guy. And I used to hide that or mask that, right? Which these skeletons in the closet that we think we're hiding that are not really all that well hidden. I would try to hide that and be someone that I wasn't. And therein lies a problem or challenge to solve for many people. We think that people aren't seeing these things, but they see through us. Anybody that's had the personal development, the years and years of personal development, they see right through that mirror or facade that we put up, and we think they don't, but they do. And it took me years. It took me 40 years to figure this out. Fortunately, it's not that difficult to walk through it. So again, I had my ladder leaning on the wrong wall. I was trying to chase significance. I wanted to be, big man on campus or all these other things that, our male ego tells us we have to be. We got to be rough and tough and all this stuff. That may or may not be the case. The key to me in being able to connect with people, which is the very thing, Conor, that I always wanted. Going back to my story of 7 years old, I just wanted to be loved and belong. And I wanted to become something important. I wanted to make a great impact in the world, right? But I didn't know how to do it. And it's funny and it's ironic because the way to do it is not a lot of these things that as men, specifically, we're told, you got to be rough, you got to position yourself, you got to be, more significant, you got to do this and that and all this trash that we're told. I came to find that's not true. What we really need is to be fully aligned and authentic with ourselves, both in business and in life, whether you're religious or spiritual or you're not, whether you're in business for yourself or not. The more alignment you have, the easier it is to have really great conversations with people like yourself and like the people who are watching and listening right now. And that is how we connect with people. Unfortunately, again, being ill-equipped, it took me 40 some years to figure all this out.
Wow. You are a great communicator, Brad. And you speak about it in such a positive light, right? In the way you communicate, I can tell you've gone through adversity and you've worked through it to the point that it's just turned into this curiosity and it's just leveling up yourself. And it's an excitement because it's once you get into this realm, and I have a long ways to go before I catch up to you, but I love it because there's this humble grounds of knowing we're students for life. And if you can look at 5 years ago and who we were, and anyone listening right now, really put us in a place. How old were we? Where were we living? Were we in school, out of school, working part-time, full-time? And what was that life like? How do we see the world? What was the lens? Were we happy the majority of the time or sad? And then looking at today. And that's maybe just 5 years, but that's just the truth is there with 10 and decades. And if we're not checking in chasing something more.
Before you go any further, because I know you're going to ask me a great question, but you just reminded me of one of my favorite quotes, and I may not deliver it perfectly, but Charlie Tremendous Jones. You ever hear the quote? You'll be the same as you are today, except for the people that you meet and the books you read. There's a quote from Charlie Tremendous Jones, who was a very well-known speaker years ago, long before you were born, my friend.
Hey, I want to look into this guy. Yeah, it's a great quote though. And I love it. And on that same note, it's the same things that we consume. We live in such a consumption, consume. And a lot of this is media, right? It's the phones, it's screens that it's the ones that can break away and either create like we're doing today, create to put more value out there, but maybe not getting caught in the consumption. When you're in the consumption, you start getting fed other people's ideas and beliefs. And I think a lot of this and the overarching topic and point here is that whether you're in business or not, and we're all just chasing happiness. And there's a type of happiness that I've come to learn called fulfillment. And it comes when we're giving and we're coming from a giving place or a loving state, right? If we're taking actions in those places, I can be happy for a few minutes in a day, but fulfillment is like 100 times happiness, right? It's that feeling that when you put your head down on your pillow at night, every night, you just know you gave it pretty much, all you could, but that your intentions are in the right place. And over the next few years and years beyond, it's going to be fun. Would you agree, Brad?
I would agree 100%. I would add to what you just delivered in that what I've come to learn is that what we're all really seeking is expansion. So whether you are spiritual or you're not, and you understand about the different wavelengths and vibrations and all that kind of stuff. I don't think we're going to have time today to dive deep in that, but I'm fascinated by all that. And I love the higher vibration levels. That's what I've come to learn and know. If you don't, you can Google that stuff online today, and the information age is wonderful. But what we're really looking for is expansion. And what oftentimes we do, what I did most of my life, was contract. So all that negativity that I was putting out, right, keeping people like an arm's length away from me, which is what I really wanted, was just to be loved and belong. That was preventing me. I was contracting. I was contracting everything, and I didn't learn how to expand. Once I learned how to expand, and I'm going to make this really simple for you because I think simple is brilliant, not for you, but for everybody listening.
I agree.
I believe simple is brilliant. When I learned how to expand things, my whole life began to change. My whole business outlook began to change. Look, I've been pretty successful in business. I was, I don't want to throw too many numbers out, but I'm a $multi-million companies, right? But I was capped. My leadership lid was capped. I was like going, like just banging my head. I could start another company and bring it to the same point, but I couldn't push through, couldn't break that barrier. I didn't know it at the time. I know that now because I've learned differently. And it's really a simple fix. And many people are going to be like, okay, so what's that fix, right? And it's probably not what you expect. So in business, I've learned to love and not fear. And it really comes down to that simple thing. I've learned to love both myself and everyone in my circles, right? It's really that simple. Either you work from fear, which many of us do in toxic environments still today, in this year, still so many people, and my heart goes out to them sincerely, are working in toxic environments. You either work from fear or you work from love. And you can work from pure love and virtue even in those toxic environments. It's not easy always, but it can be done. And the more you do, the better off you'll be. And the more you'll begin to expand, and your relationships will expand, your career path will expand, everything begins to expand. And it really is that simplistic. It's simple, but it's not always easy.
I could not agree more. And love trumps fear. And it comes in so many different ways. Something I've learned in the last year here quick is, even when I catch myself, we're humans, we feel fear, right? Something that I start to sense, oh, that's kind of, maybe it's a feeling in my stomach and I feel a little fear. Reminding myself where the love is in this, right? So a lot of times if it's the fear, it's a lot of selfish thinking. Conor, you're thinking about yourself. You're not thinking about the team and how this helps the team and all of our clients and any our friends, family. So want to make that statement before I forget. Brad, you mentioned hanging around higher vibration individuals. Now, a lot of those individuals are people that have this curiosity, and they're also putting in work to maybe learn what that next level or version of themselves could be. Mm-hmm. Where do you find those types of people? Where do those types of people hang out?
They hang out in your tribe, man.
Where else? I completely agree. I'm curious. Where do you go to find? Can we list like 3 to 5 places that if you had a client asking you where do these high vibrational individuals, professionals hang out, whether it's online or in person? Where would you recommend looking?
Yeah. So I love your question. And if I answered any other way, the first answer would be, an ineffective answer, right? So
You're exactly right. No, I love it. We're about the juice, and I know you love to share it.
totally with you. So can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Gotta love online events. Let me know when you can hear me, Connor.
So I can hear you. The video is coming. There we go. We are back.
All right, we're back.
Yep.
Almost. I'm here. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yes.
Good.
Can you see me?
Cloud flares or what's going on?
Right? I don't know. I'll try video off here for a second. Is that better?
Let's see. I don't think it's on my end. All right, you look like you're back. I don't think it's on my end. I was checking some things here. I think we're good, but I don't know. It's hard to say, right?
Yeah, and I'm in Iowa City right now, so I'm not in the normal office, but normally interviews have worked if we conduct over here. But can you hear me now?
Yeah, that is going to be me. I just changed because I have multiple Wi-Fi, so I just changed to a different Wi-Fi just to be sure.
Okay, perfect.
So, all right. I'm back with Conor. Yay!
We're back. Yes. High vibrational individuals and professionals. Where in the world do we really find these places? Are these people?
It's a great question. I absolutely love this question. That can be a challenge for people. So there's a lot of conversations out there now about like attracts like, right? So that's one of the key things is we need to become that person so we do attract them. But then the question becomes, okay, now we're becoming that person. Now where do we go? Where's the traffic? Where do we find people like that? And what I found, and that was a big struggle for me, quite honestly. I'll share another quick story. When I first made that shift. So when I first made that shift, I was preparing myself. I was getting ready. I read all these books, right? I've read a book a day for years because I knew I needed to make a shift. There was a catalyst to my change in my life, and I wanted to become a better person. And once I learned how to do that, I began to take some steps. And so I read some books, and then those books, like there was a pattern between those books, and then those books got me introduced to a few people, but I still felt like I wasn't getting where I wanted to be. Like my connections weren't there. My circle still wasn't, where I knew it could be, because now I was well read. Now I had seen glimpses of this higher vibrational, higher vibrational, land, if you will. But then now I was like, well, okay, well, how do I create my own? Like, how do I get involved? And so I love your question and how you framed it. I think easiest, right, is, I'll deliver in a second, is when you realize something. And so what the time came for me where I began to reach out to people. And Conor, look, I tried everything, right? I'm not shy. So I wrote letters. I was connected like a couple hundred people on LinkedIn. One of those people being Bob Berg. I don't know if any people listening know Bob Berg. He has a great book, and the Go Giver, and I love that. He has a new one, the Go Giver Leader, which is great too. But like one of those people was him. The other was like COO of Disney, somehow I got connected with that guy, right? Wonderful guy. And like I had a couple people that I had seen their posts on LinkedIn that I was connected to, right? And a couple of them are coaches. And so I reached out to a bunch of people. I reached out to Tony Robbins. I reached out to everyone, man, because I was like, you know what? I need to figure this out. So I wrote a compelling story of the struggles that I was walking through. Not too long, but just like, and I just told them, look, I just want a better life. I want to be connected with higher level people. And I didn't make it a whiny story, but I shared my heart. And, you know, of the, I don't know, 20 letters that I wrote out to people, only like 3 people got back to me. One of them was Bob Berg. The other was the guy that I just mentioned, the COO of Disney. And then the other was who became my coach. And that's why I'm sharing this story. Mac Story. His name is Mac Story. That guy changed my life. So he was willing to reach back out to me, and he you know, we just shared some time. But I got to tell you, there was a catalyst to change there. We had a number of conversations that I said, you know, I think I need some mentorship, right? And I really would love to have a mentor. I wanted a male role model in my life and all these things, right? Even as many accomplishments as I had created through my life, wasn't just about business. I knew to move my leadership lid up, I needed to have a certain connection. And so then came the time where Mac said, absolutely, I'll send you a link. And I was like, no, yuck, right? And I realized in that moment that I was going to have to pay for the thing that I always had wanted. And there was a certain ickiness. I share this with humor because that's what my mindset was at the moment, right? There was this ickiness about that. I was like, oh, I have to pay. That's not really what I was looking for, right? I thought mentorship was something different, right? The reason why I share this is because the moment that I took him up on his offer and he said, look, I just need to know you have skin in the game. That's it. That's all it's about. The moment that I actually paid for that. Now, Conor, I had spent thousands of dollars on dinners and taking other people out and all this kind of stuff. Like, I'd spent hundreds and hundreds in bars, probably thousands in bars. I just don't admit it, but like all these things that I had spent before. But then when it came down to paying a minimal link for a coach, I had this ickiness feeling. What's that about? And so I remember that moment like it was yesterday. And I remember thinking, oh, heck. Well, it's probably a different word. Oh, heck. What do I have to lose? And so I did. I clicked the link, right? We've all seen it 1,000 times all over the internet today. But I took the step. And it was in the moment that I took that step that everything changed for me. That was a great conversation. It was catalyst to many, many changes in my life. But that moment, everything changes when I began to truly believe in myself and invest in myself. It didn't have anything to do with him. It had everything to do with me. So going back to the question that you asked, where do you find those people? You can find some of them through your social connections on social media, but you need to know who you're looking for and what you're looking for. And therein lies some challenge for people. They don't know what they want. They know what they don't want, but they haven't flipped it into what they do want, which is really just the opposite thing. So there's your answer. But they don't know what they want clearly.
Exactly.
And they don't know how to ask for it, and they don't know who to connect with. But when you know what you want clearly, like I said, if you know what you don't want, then flip it. And then you have an idea of what you do want. And then you have a starting point to begin to look for those people that have those strengths, right? So that's step one. Then there's a plateau to that. There's only so much you can get for that. At some point, you need to begin you can go to books, you can go to free courses and webinars and all these things that people do. But then there's a plateau to that. There's only so much that you can get from that before you start investing in high level programs. At some stage, if you want to get to new levels, you need to invest in a group coaching program. You need to invest in a mastermind group with high level people. You need to invest in some one-on-one coaching. That's the real answer. It might not be the most popular answer, but if I'm going to be real, that's where it's at. That's how you get in front of the room of high caliber people.
Amen. And amen. I say that not in a religious way. I'm just like, period. Let's unpack. You are exactly right. And I had the exact same shift. And I don't even think I shared this with you. I had gotten coaching and I knew the importance of mentorship, right? Because I couldn't afford it in college, but I had the professors and things, but then there were different ways you could also get mentors. And I wanted some in the community. And I played the student card and I got them. And I think another point here is throughout life, you can, as you're leveling up, and this is an exciting part, these same individuals that help guide us in a chapter or two, a few chapters of our life, they might not always be around. And sometimes we have to continue leveling up, and that's nothing against them. They did exactly what we should be forever grateful for, and keep them close and communicate to them how grateful we are for that. And as we do, we're almost able to start seeing that lens, like we started this conversation, Brad, right? Where when you have the skeleton in the closet, but you don't think the world knows about it. I lived a lot of my life like that, right? But the people that have done this work, a lot of times you can see through the BS, simply put, even faster, right? And what I love is, I have to completely agree, when I started paying money out of my own pocket, even though I didn't have really any extra money, like I had to go door knock on the side. I had to go sell solar door knocking on the side, apart from doing the full-time work here, because I was like, you know what? Like you had said, well, what's worst case scenario? I feel like all the guys I look up to, they're all doing it. And I know they pay out of pocket too. Like regardless of whatever the circumstances are, I had gotten past that. I was tired of all the excuses I had been coming up with. Oh, well, I can't afford it yet. Oh, we could do it this. And I had two coaches, right? Two coaches through the company that the company paid. But I wanted this other one. And I'm sure there could have been a way we could have figured it out and worked out a deal through the company. But it was the act of paying out of my own pocket for me that opened it up, because it was a shift in paradigm. I took that a lot more seriously. And it's crazy. This was only in January of this year. We're talking this year, right? This has been a crazy transformation. And the majority of this work and the type of coaching I'm doing is on my childhood and uncovering and learning things that I did not even know happened, right? And it's just going through stories and understanding them. It's nothing intense. It's nothing intimidating. It's just going with an open mind and a curiosity for, I believe I could live a better life. And I believe I might be able to tap into more love and come from a giving heart and give some more love to the world. Would you agree?
I would totally agree. I think as I scroll back, and I know the point of this is social selling and connection, right? And let's not lose sight of that through this conversation, because we've gone into some really deep topics, but I think that's the point of it. I think it starts with intention. So when I really realized, now, again, I had all these accomplishments, right? I have the list of accomplishments in terms of, what a lot of people would consider success, money and toys and, business and how much I made a year and all that kind of stuff. But when I came to the point where I realized none of that mattered, then I had to recreate an intention of what I did want. And again, a lot of people don't know what they want, or they're shifting and they're pivoting, so they don't have clarity in that. When I began to shift and just realized like I needed to shift my intention, then I was able to do that. But intention is a very powerful mechanism, right? And so I remember the day where I felt like giving up. And I won't go too deep here, but I was like, I don't even know what I believe anymore. And that thought, that statement was one of the most powerful things that ever occurred in my life. And so what I do with a lot of my clients and my students will start about the power of belief and intention, because that's the catalyst of what you can talk about in the future. When you change, when you realize that intention is powerful, and when you realize that you're X number of years old right now, and that all the beliefs and all the teachings and all the things that you've learned along the way may or may not be what you believe today, and you remove all those axioms and you start fresh today and say, what do I believe right now? Not based on what somebody has told me, but based on who I am as a person, as a man, as a woman, as a whatever it is. It doesn't matter whether you're a child or adult, makes no difference. What do I believe right now in this moment? It's shocking and surprising to me when I stand in front of a room, 1,000 people, and say, what's your number one belief? And stand there like I am right now with my hand raised. And very few, usually only a half a dozen or so people actually know what they believe and can state it. Yet that's what drives us daily, day in and day out, every single day. And the people, like literally on one hand in a room of 1,000, that can answer the question, what's their number one belief? So again, it's just things that we haven't been taught. So when it comes to social selling, like reeling this in and putting, framing this up in those terms, right? When we know what we believe and who we are as people, as a person, right? As a man, as a woman, whoever you are, then it becomes much more easier to just have a simple conversation, not necessarily just, plaster out the canned messages and sales and send people links on LinkedIn like we get bombarded with every single day, right? It starts with the power of intention, and it's conditioned by knowing who you are as a person, regardless of the company that you work for, understanding who they are, but also understanding who you are and how you connect with people. So yes, of course I agree.
I love that. That is another bookmark. We've got like 11 bookmarks in this conversation. A lot of gold nuggets. I appreciate it, Brad. And to hop into the sales side of things, because really high quality sales is simply communication, just like you're saying. And when you're a quality human, is what I'm gathering from what you mentioned. Quality human that has values and maybe a why in life, and that why can change. It doesn't have to be absolute, just a why today, and maybe it'll change.
Say that again, please. Say it again.
Just have a why, have some kind of intention, and understanding that it might not be right, and that's okay, because it might change tomorrow, and again, that's okay, and a week from now. It does for a lot of us, and it's just reminding what those intentions are. For me personally, I like to write the goals down in different contexts, but every month for the last 8 years, they've been updated. And so I see the subtle changes. I see how 9 years ago when I was writing goals about how much money I wanted to earn, I haven't seen that in years now, because I've switched it to, yeah, maybe that is the intention, but what's the why? What do I want because of it? Oh, well, it's to give back to family, loved ones, and give them cool experiences and show them love. So what if instead it was, how many customers can we serve? How many clients, do we need to serve to that point? Just one quick example. To talk on the sales side and just lead generation, what do you see happening come kind of post-COVID? I don't even know if we're allowed to say that yet, because it's not really post-COVID for the majority of the world.
Oh, you said that word.
Yeah, right. But this world of online selling, and we are entering this new era, and we like to call it this online selling environment. And LinkedIn calls it buyer first selling is really what's going to be winning and taking over. We call it very similarly, the same strategy, just different terminology, but we call it social selling, right? It's quality humans interacting. How do you see, and what are you, I guess here, let me rephrase that. What are you the most excited for with this new era in social selling and relationships being built online?
What am I most excited for is the question in terms of social selling. I'm gonna share another story with the pain point, and then move to your answer. So through my career, look, I have story upon story upon story upon story of mistakes. I like to consider myself a mistake expert. And in my younger years, like I shared before, is like I was upset about that. But now I welcome those things, like fail forward, as a common statement today for people that understand that, or, fail fast, falling forward is what I like to say. Right. And so I've learned that. And I remember when I shifted. So when I realized I had reached the cap, right, of my business, there was a time throughout my career, I'll keep the story condensed it for this, and I'd love to see you on a stage somewhere else where I share the more full version. But I came to a point where three things came together, and I'll leave that as a cliffhanger, but I made a change. So I went from making like $250,000 a year to making zero, right? And I came back home. One of the most powerful intentions was I was going to be with my son through his high school and college years, right? And so I gave up the business that I was in order to be able to do that, along with a couple other things. The point being, though, is that I made that shift, right? And when I made that shift, I still needed to create some income, but I couldn't do it in the business that I was in. I was building stadiums and tennis courts and basketball. You can only build so many of those in one city. So I wasn't willing to travel during those years. That's the crux of it. Anyhow, when I made that shift, I was like, what am I going to do now? Right. So I did end up landing a position with Amazon. So I worked Amazon logistics for a while. I figured, why not work for the biggest retailer in the world, right? I learned some big business experience. And so while I was there, in all that I had done, so at 40 roughly years old or so, and all the accomplishments that I've had, been through the military and all these entrepreneurial accomplishments, here I was working for the biggest retailer. And I walked in, and just because I'm a pattern guy, because I'm a systems guy, because of all the things I had learned in business, there was immediate solutions that I had that I could solve for them. I mean, I could see them within a day or two, right? I was watching the managers fall on their face and the mistakes they were making and all these things, these even high-level problems that I knew I could solve. So I knew not to speak up like in the first week, but here I'm coming to the point. Even in like after 30 days of just trying to come in and create a little bit of influence with people and just observe properly and all these things that we know in our minds are good practice, even still, I didn't have the right influence. When I began to speak up, the reaction I got was, who the heck are you? And I mean, in my ego, I was like, what do you mean? I've done this and this and that and this and that, and now I'm here. But I didn't have enough influence with those people yet. I didn't have enough longevity with those people yet to begin to speak into those problems. So of course the reaction was, who the heck are you? Probably framed in a different way. But they were like, who are you to tell me how to do this? Which was not my intention. My intention really was to serve and love on those people. So here's my point, what I'm looking forward to. That was your question, right? What I'm looking forward to is a day where we don't have to barrel in and try to position with an immediate link, right? So we get bombarded with these sales tactics that are from the 1970s, like with the law of averages, like if the more people you reach out to, the more money you'll make. Not so much today. What I'm looking forward to, Conor, is a day where we begin to really, when the masses begin to create influence with one another, when we begin to have the patience and the discipline and the infrastructure that's required to, and the curiosity to actually learn a system of how to, over time, with longevity, with the long goal, begin with the end in mind, right? How to connect with one another over social aspects. And I'm just saying social media, but in all regards of social, right? How we connect with one another more effectively. And that is by seeking to understand timeless principles, right? Seeking to understand, not be understood. It's really that simple. That's what I look forward to. And it is happening. So the positive side is it is happening. But if you barrel in without any influence, you're going to get the same reaction I got. Who the hell are you?
Yeah. In marketing 101, put yourself in the shoes of the person you're reaching out to cold. Do you enjoy when someone would reach out in this context with a link and direct sell? Now, did that work 5 years ago, 10 years ago on LinkedIn? Yes, but the landscape changes, and you don't want to be stuck the taxi cab driver that just decided, I don't want to download the Uber app, like I'm just going to fight it, when you easily could be a taxi cab driver and an Uber driver, both stickers, right? And maybe even Lyft. But instead, you go out of business, and you don't want to be the red box. You don't want to be, the list goes on. Brad, thank you so much for your time today. And the gold nuggets that you share, I'm excited when we do a catch-up interview together in whether it's 6 to 12 months or beyond, and we definitely have to do it in person because I know there's too much juice, and it sounds like the internet at one point couldn't handle it. So for anyone, Brad, that really resonated with some of the points and from your military background to the adversity. And I know that relates to me more than anything, but for anyone out there that's honest and wanting to grow, knows that adversity gets you to that next level. For anyone that wants to get in contact with you or maybe even learn more about you, Brad, where can they learn more? Where can they find you?
Where can they not? I've been around on social now for a while, which is funny because for 14 years, like all the early adopters on Facebook, I wasn't on social media for 14 years. I resisted it. But I'm pretty much on all the mains now. So Instagram, hit me up, Brad A. Milford on Instagram. LinkedIn, I'm right here on LinkedIn. So Brad A. Milford is easy to find. I also have a Facebook group, Built for Brilliance, which is great. But what I'd say is buildbrilliance.net. It's pretty simple. There's a bunch of resources there. Honestly, I'd encourage them just simply to do what we've talked about today. Reach out and say, hey, I heard that interview you did with Conor. I'd love to connect with you. That's really the easiest way to get in touch with me on any social platform, right? I have got so many. I'd love to give your listeners, something free, but I have so many of them on all my social selling links. There's a download to how to become a high achiever. There's one on how to create influence and impact in 47 steps. These are really hard lessons that I've learned throughout my life, right? Free downloads. I would encourage someone to start there and just whatever it is, walk your authentic path and connect with higher level people and just never give up.
I love that. And you said it's buildbrilliance.com?
Yeah, buildbrilliance.net. buildbrilliance.net.
.net. Beautiful. And I'll make sure to include those links in your socials down below in the description too. Brad, thank you again for your time. Any last word for the social sellers?
Just remember who you are is greater than where you are. I appreciate you,
Beautiful.
Conor.
Thank you, Brad. Talk to you soon. This is a good one. I'm excited.
Around like this image, so like people were like, oh, that's cool that you're Snoop Dogg, but like we see you as this, which I think is really cool too. Like,
yeah, and who'd be the other one? Steve Aoki. He's also an OG. He's been, and a lot of people don't know that. So Des Bryant, and as far as when I got into just some of the names that I'm seeing, the early adopters, Des Bryant, Steve Aoki, and like Gary Vee earlier